That's pretty fucking crazy. That lasted for about 2 hours. And we watch all these fucking cop cars go in this big loop. They do it like 4 different times. Pull off, go across the bridge over here. You can see them all with the sirens on going across the bridge. Come back, do the same thing. During all that, 3 buses get escorted in. Lots of police just everywhere. You can see all around the city, fucking police. I watched that for the last 2 hours, talking shit. And then it all goes dark. Gets back to normal while shit's pulling off. And then we get this shit out of fucking nowhere. This was one of the it's one of the things that QAnon would post. He'd say, when it's all said and done, look up at the night sky, or something like that.
You don't think they're throwing a party?
They're not throwing a fucking Biden party. I'm telling you, I just watched everybody in the White House get arrested.
It's dark, I can't see nothing, no secrets. 2 out of 10.
What's going on? I'm Lily, and this is the Davos Daily, your go-to source for the biggest highlights of the Davos agenda. From the top.
When public health issues become politically charged, like wearing a mask or not becomes a political statement, you cannot imagine how destructive that is to any unified public health message.
I completely agree. Wearing a mask is not political. It's responsible. Also, I break out all the time and a mask covers it. It's a win-win.
President Biden strikes down the Keystone XL pipeline, ending a 12-year saga of a controversial oil pipeline. Does this kill the economy, or does this save the environment? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Oil. America loves it. U.S. dependence on foreign oil is a big reason for many of America's foreign wars. Oil-producing countries even have a lot of sway over U.S. presidents. But I'm happy to say, newly elected President Biden has broken from the mold and is striking a blow to America's greatest oil-producing enemy, Canada. Biden has canceled the Keystone XL pipeline, a proposed oil pipeline that would send Canadian oil to the U.S. This was actually one of Biden's day one promises as president, and he kept his promise. Whoa, Joe, you got a lot to learn about being president. Canada is the world's 4th largest oil exporter. Almost all of that exported oil goes to the United States. Even with the huge growth of America's own oil industry, half of the country's oil still comes from Canada. So Trudeau was not happy about Biden's decision to axe the pipeline. In fact, in his first call with Biden, Trudeau said he was disappointed. Given Trudeau's persona, you might be surprised that he's a major defender of the Keystone XL oil pipeline, that this was an issue he and Trump agreed on. In 2017, Trudeau said no country would find 173 billion barrels of oil in the ground and just leave them there. The resource will be developed. Our job is to ensure that it is done responsibly, safely, and sustainably. So what is the Keystone XL pipeline? And why is it so controversial? I'll tell you the full story right after the break.
Wait till you see this guy. Yeah, this is all he does. Same song, same moves, forever. Now you already know what I'm gonna say, right? This guy's got millions of views for doing nothing. Well, you're right. But you know what? Good for him. Why work when you can be a dancing sim character for a living? There's no excuse anymore. If you're at a dead-end job, it's time for a change. Get yourself a pair of whatever the hell those things are, and get to dancing. Like if you dig holes for a living, just film yourself humping your shovel handle while you're working. Post a 10-second clip of you doing that at every job site. Within a month, you'll be the shovel humper guy. Millions of views, fans across the world. Quit your job, you made it. This guy could be saving lives, you know. I'm sure there's somebody in his fan base out there that took the rope off of their neck after discovering him. I'm sure he'd even get votes in our next election knowing our country. You know, if this really is the end times, what better way to go out than with this guy dancing on top of a mountain of our mistakes?
Welcome back. Canada has a lot of oil, and it wants to sell it to the United States. The Keystone XL pipeline controversy has been brewing for 12 years. It's an estimated $8 billion project from Canada's TC Energy, formerly known as TransCanada. TC Energy already has pipelines in the US, the Keystone Pipeline and the Keystone Gulf Coast Pipeline. Those pipelines carry Canadian crude oil to big US oil refineries. The Keystone XL pipeline was going to be a 1,200-mile-long expansion to the existing pipelines. The expansion was originally conceived when oil prices were at historic highs, just before the 2008 financial crisis and American shale oil boom. Canada has very stringent environmental regulations, but the pipeline expansion managed to jump through all those hurdles, and in 2010, Canadian regulators approved it. The problem was the US. The pipeline was controversial in the US for several reasons. First, whether you're talking about farmers, ranchers, or Native Americans, no one wanted an oil pipeline built in their backyard. And then there were environmental concerns. The existing Keystone pipeline has leaked several times, including a major spill in 2019 and in 2017. Understandably, people don't want their farmland looking like this. But even if safety standards can be improved for the proposed Keystone XL pipeline, some environmentalists don't care. They view oil production as inherently evil, something that destroys the environment and contributes to climate change, which will kill us all. So rather than invest in more greenhouse gas spewing oil production, why not invest more in green, renewable energy? By 2012, President Obama still hadn't made a decision on the Keystone XL pipeline, so he used the upcoming election to delay the decision even further. He rejected the permit, saying a congressionally imposed deadline didn't allow enough time to review the project's environmental impact before the election. But he suggested TC Canada could reapply later. After being re-elected, Obama's State Department began the environmental review. In 2014, the review concluded the pipeline would not significantly contribute to carbon pollution. But in 2015, Obama rejected it anyway, citing climate change concerns despite the State Department's report. Then came Trump. One of his campaign promises was to approve the Keystone XL pipeline. And a few months into Trump's presidency, the State Department granted a permit for the pipeline. But in 2018, a U.S. district judge blocked the construction until even more environmental studies could be completed, because he said the State Department's studies fell short. Trump called that a political decision, and in March 2019, he just signed the permit himself. That bypassed the judge's order to block the construction because it only applied to the State Department. There are a variety of reasons why both Trump and Trudeau wanted the Keystone XL pipeline. Now that's a buddy cop movie I'd pay to see. Donald Trump and Justin Trudeau in Double Trouble. You know you'd watch it. Anyway, back to the oil pipelines. Canada has been grappling for years with congestion on pipelines. That caused a glut of oil in storage tanks in Alberta, driving prices down and spurring the province to impose production curtailments to drain record inventories. The new Keystone XL pipeline is designed to ease that glut, while providing Americans with cheap oil that doesn't come from foreign oil wars. There's also the economic advantage. The pipeline construction would create high-paying, blue-collar union jobs and support indigenous tribes. TC Energy reached a deal with 4 labor unions in August 2020 to build the line. In November, it reached an agreement with 5 indigenous tribes that says the tribes will take a roughly $785 million ownership stake. And a new deal, led by North America's building trades unions, gives priority to union workers for the project. Over the past several months, 124 miles of the pipeline have been built. But then, Biden took office, and the project is now dead. And that has long-lasting consequences. I'll tell you what they are after this break.
No more to stand with China. We need independence.
Yep. And what's your message to? Have you seen Donald Trump? Do you think he should step in?
Donald Trump don't trust China. China is asshole.
Yeah.
And the order, and that increases the total vaccine order in the United States by 50%, from 400 million order to 600 million. This is enough vaccine to fully vaccinate 300 Americans. Come on, man.
Welcome back. So President Biden has killed the Keystone XL pipeline. What are the consequences, besides potentially yielding 48,000 tons of scrap metal? Well, it depends on whether Americans are really ready to give up their gasoline-fueled cars. I'm gonna go with not yet. And as long as America still needs oil, then America might want to at least get that oil from a more environmentally friendly source. Now, Canada's tar sands are not the world's most environmentally friendly source of oil per se, but innovation and technological improvements have substantially reduced the greenhouse gas emissions associated with Canadian tar sands productions by 30% since the 1990s, as the Canadian government calculates. And in a last-minute attempt to stop Biden, TC Energy pledged the project would produce net zero carbon emissions. To power the partially completed pipeline, they vowed to spend $1.7 billion on solar, wind, and battery power. And they also pledged to hire a union workforce and eliminate all greenhouse gas emissions from operations by 2030. But it didn't matter. That's a bad message to send to energy companies. It doesn't matter what you do to minimize greenhouse gas emissions, because no innovation, no compromise is ever enough. Of course, there are major environmental challenges with so-called green energy as well, like how the solar panel market is dominated by China. And when the US is reliant on a hostile authoritarian regime for its energy needs, that can lead to problems. like how the US spends huge resources in the Middle East to protect oil interests. Speaking of hostile authoritarian regimes, by canceling the Keystone XL pipeline with Canada, it could mean Canadian oil is replaced by Russian and Venezuelan oil. I don't know about you, but I'd rather get my oil from this guy than this guy. But what about union jobs? PolitiFact says the claim that by revoking the Keystone XL pipeline permit, Biden is destroying 11,000 jobs is only half true. What's half true? Well, PolitiFact points to a statement by TC Energy that says the pipeline construction was expected to employ more than 11,000 Americans, creating $1.6 billion in gross wages. So, what's half true? PolitiFact says, well, those are just estimated jobs, and most of the estimated jobs were temporary. What? You mean when you complete a construction project, the job is over? But here's the biggest problem with the Keystone XL pipeline. It's part of an ongoing partisan war between the right and the left that isn't based on economics or the environment, but on eternally struggling against the other side. The Keystone XL pipeline became a symbol too often used as a campaign cudgel by both parties, rather than a serious policy matter. And all of this obscured the fact that this pipeline would neither be a silver bullet for the economy, as was promised by some, nor the express lane to climate disaster proclaimed by others. You know who said that? President Obama. As it is now, it is impossible for American businesses to make big, long-term investments in a political environment in which every project is up for renegotiation or summary economic execution every time the White House changes hands. It shouldn't be possible for one man serving a short term in a temporary elected office to undo years of work and billions of dollars in investment. Unless, of course, the president you voted for is in power. Then he should be allowed to do whatever he wants. But at the end of the day, President Biden's cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline may not have much of an impact on the economy or the environment. Because even without it, the US is set for record Canadian oil imports in the coming years. And no, we won't need to rely on sending the oil on the backs of Canadian moose, or even Canadian geese. It turns out that a whole bunch of smaller oil pipelines that get way less media attention are in the process of being expanded. And those will provide more than enough capacity to send lots of Canadian oil to the US. As one expert puts it, if you add them all up, you can make the argument that the Keystone XL pipeline was not needed. Oh, good. So this whole debate that's lasted for 12 years through 3 presidential administrations doesn't really make any difference. So what do you think of the Keystone XL pipeline and Biden's decision to stop it? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.
I feel the universe functioning perfectly, but I'm still perfectly locked inside myself. Instead of oneness, I feel isolation.